This is the first post in what may become a series about my effort to learn enough about programming to automate some of my regular tasks and to help my team. I currently work in the training department at a large telecommunications company, and I want to help 2 interns I hired build a complex application that supports launching and managing virtual training labs on a public cloud provider's infrastructure. There are many different technologies that we must use to create this application. In addition to Python, we also need to learn Python web frameworks like Flask, enough HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to render the web pages presented by the application, the cloud API of the cloud provider we'll be using. We need to learn how SCORM packages work and how we can launch them from our learning management system. We need to learn databases, security, Git, and more. It can seem very intimidating. However, I need to start somewhere. I usually like to skim through a book on the topic before I get started. I think that books are usually better than browsing the web for blog posts and videos because a book's author tries to cover most of what you need to know, organized in a way the author thinks is helpful. There are many great books available for Python. You can search for recommendations on the web. I found a good review of several popular books on the Real Python blog. In my case, I chose to read the classic Python book, Learning Python. This turned out to be a very long book, and the author spends maybe too much time discussing each topic, especially for a beginner. Maybe I would not start with this book if I was to do it again. I read the first few chapters, and then, in order to create something practical, I wrote a Getting Started with Python document for my own use. I've posted it on my blog for anyone who's interested in reading it, and I refer back to this fairly frequently. It's a nice way to solidify the knowledge you're gaining if you can't get right into it and start using the technology, is to try to teach the topic to somebody, even if it's just your future self. That's what I did here, and I think it worked out well for me. Then I skimmed through the rest of the Learning Python book. That was enough to get me started, but there are other resources available on the internet that I thought were really tuned to the kind of programming that I and my team need to do. Microsoft produced some excellent beginning programming videos with Python, and they focus on topics that a lot of beginner guides don't get to, like accessing APIs, working with JSON data, and things like that. So they sort of skip ahead to some specific topics, make it friendly for beginners, and that's because they're trying to teach people how to build web apps with Python that interact with cloud APIs. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in our project. Microsoft produced 2 sets of videos. The first one is just called Python for Beginners, and the second one is called More Python for Beginners. If you've already worked through a book, I recommend just checking out specific videos to fill in some gaps and then move on. We don't want to spend too much time preparing. Since I want to begin with the end in mind, I also wanted to make sure that the code that we write is in the right style. In Python, there's more than one way to do the same thing, and it's good to write code in a way that's easy to understand, easy for other people to work with in the future. I really liked the Hitchhiker's Guide to Python Code Style Guide, and I just keep that open in a tab when I'm working so I can refer to it. At this point, I'm ready to start on some small projects that should help me build my Python skills. I'll get started on that in the next post. Thanks for listening.